Hello everyone, my name is Serafia and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be playing Chimera, pure Chimera. So Chimera is an interesting fusion deck, and it's been out in Master Duel for about a year now, which is why now it's got a selection pack. I'm really excited to give this deck a try, and I've been playing it. And there are several ways that you can play Chimera, which is a fusion deck that focuses around beasts, illusions, and fiend monsters. But you can play it with Runic, you can play it with Horus, you can play it with Branded, all good options. But I wanted to try it pure first so I could showcase to you guys what the actual deck does, so that you can know that the cards themselves can win even without some sort of other engine. So for the hand traps, we are playing Psyframe Driver and 2 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma. This deck really likes to have additional resources, so having these cards allow you to basically counter an Ash while also getting additional resources on the board. The main targets for Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs will be Cornfield Codal, which is a discard from hand, Mirror Sword Knight, which tributes itself to activate, and Fright for Patchwork, which is a spell card. So most of the time when you get Ash, you have nothing on the board. Therefore, Psyframe Gear Gamma is an excellent card to counter Ash Blossom and Max C, while also giving you enough resources to make several of your cards. In particular, one of the extra deck monsters that we are playing is Evolzor Lars, which is a rank 6. So getting a level 6 on the board for free with the Psyframe Driver is fantastic. For those of you that don't know how Psyframe Gear Gamma works, it's a level 2 Psychic Tuner monster. It cannot be normal summoned or set. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, as a quick effect, you can special summon both this card from your hand and 1 Psyframe Driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, negate that activation, and if you do, destroy that monster. During the end phase, banish the face-up monster special summoned by this effect. So it is a free Synchro 8 if you are playing Synchros, which we are not. And then it's also a free Link 2 or a free Rank 6 if we are playing Rank 6s, which we are. Great option. 3 copies of Max C. Max C, of course, is beneficial to most decks, and fusion decks are no exception. Requiring us to play no less than 5 fusion cards does mean that we are prone to bricking a little bit, so Max C helps us quite a lot. And it also discourages the opponent from playing cards, which means that we can more readily take advantage of the opponent going second. We are playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs is just a great card to stop the opponent from extending or initially searching. It can also counter certain cards, like for example, it can counter Psyframe Gear Gamma, because Psyframe Gear Gamma does have an effect to special summon from the deck. So the entire Negate is countered. Then we are playing 2 copies of Called by the Grave to stop Max C and Ash, and 1 copy of Crossout Designator to stop Max C and Ash. There you go. Those are our hand traps. Pretty basic. We're not playing Imperm. We're not playing Nibiru, because we are a fusion deck and we have a lot more cards that we need to be running. So let's talk about the main list. Our strategy revolves around Barrier Statue of the Abyss, which we are playing at 1. Barrier Statue of the Abyss, level 4 Dark Fiend monster. Neither player can special summon monsters except dark monsters. I will talk about how this card is summoned in a minute, but obviously you can see this is a dark locking card. It is very beneficial. There are a lot of fire decks running around between Fire Kings and Snake Eyes and Salamandrates. There's a lot of other decks, like for example, you have Earth decks with the new Medolce support. You have Vernisylphs. You have Ancient Gears. A lot of people like to play Ancient Gears, even though it's not a very good deck. So yeah, there are a lot of decks that don't run any dark monsters at all, and a lot of the dark decks do run light monsters as well. So Barrier Statue is a pretty good locking card. It also locks us a lot, but we don't talk about that part. Okay, Edge Imp Chain. When this card declares an attack, you can add 1 Edge Imp Chain from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Fright for a card from your deck to your hand. You can only use 1 Edge Imp Chain effect per turn, only once that turn. So, It's important to note that Edge Imp Chain does not trigger if it is sent from the deck to the graveyard. So do not mill this card with your Baphomet the Mythical King. But you can use it as fusion material, and then you can search your Fright for Patchwork. And what Fright for Patchwork does is it allows you to add one Edge Imp monster and one Polymerization from your deck to your hand, so that you can get additional extension with a random Fiend monster and a Polymerization. Great. Now we get to the good stuff. Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. This is a level 4 Earth Beast monster. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one level 5 Fiend monster or one Chimera fusion from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can add one illusion monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, once per turn. This is a great card. So, Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws will draw you either your Chimera fusion, which is a great card, or it will draw you Big Wing Baphomet. And then also, when it's fused off, can search any illusion monster. And typically the illusion monster you want to search is Nightmare Apprentice, because Nightmare Apprentice can special summon itself and then also search you another illusion monster. So this just gives you more and more resources for your fusion summoning. Fantastic card play at 3. Next up, we're playing Cornfield Coatl. This is a level 4 Wind Illusion monster. It's important to note that all of the illusion monsters in this deck share an ability, and that ability is, if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. Neither your monster nor your opponent's monster, because illusions are not real. This is a very interesting idea, and it was printed on almost all of the illusion monsters that were initially released, similar to how almost all of the psychic monsters that were initially released had some sort of life point pay effect. I don't know how Konami is going to handle this moving forward. They have printed like a new illusion monster that is a normal monster. Hold on. Yeah, there's just a Jongular Ghoul Illusionist, which is just a level 4 with 2000 attack and 0 defense. So not every illusion monster is going to have this effect to prevent destruction of battle, but so far almost all of them do. So it's really interesting that they have this type-based thing. You can only use each of the following effects of Cornfield Coatl once per turn. You can discard this card, add one monster that mentions Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, except Coatl. And when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control, while you control Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, as a quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. Fantastic. A grave effect that triggers to negate and protect is great. And then also, of course, it has a search function. So between Cornfield Coatl's negate and Mirror Sword Knight's negate, Chimera is very resilient against certain board-breaking cards. Like, for example, Infinite Impermanence and... well, you have to negate the Imperm, unless you have 2 copies of a Chimera monster out. You do have to negate the Imperm with your Coatl, but you can do so. Or, I was gonna say, Dark Ruler No More, but Dark Ruler No More does make it so that your monsters are not treated as Chimera anymore. You get the idea. Like, you can't just look at the board and see all the negates that are on the board and potentially destroy the monsters and negate the cards. You have options in the graveyard, which really throws a lot of people off. Now, if you are playing against Chimera, what you want to do is you want to get rid of the Chimera monster as fast as possible. That turns off all the grave effects. This is a fantastic card play at 3. And it's a super rare, which is great. Mirror Sword Knight. Mirror Sword Knight is a level 4 illusion monster. If this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. As a quick effect, you attribute this card to special summon one monster from your deck that mentions Chimera Fusion, except Mirror Sword Knight. And when a monster your opponent controls activates this effect while you control Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard to negate that effect. So it does not destroy the card, but it's any monster effect, not just a targeting effect, which is great. It does have to be a monster your opponent controls, which means that it can't be activated in the graveyard or on the field, or in the hand. It has to be on the field. This is good, though. This is a really good card. It's also important to note that Mirror Sword Knight is a quick effect tribute, which means that if your opponent tries to impermanent as soon as it's summoned, you just trigger the effect in response. And when you trigger the effect, it can't be imperm because it's not on the board anymore. Same with Effect Veiler. So your starter is resistant to both Effect Veiler and imperm, which is fantastic. And this is the card that you search off of Coatl. You can either special summon Gazelle or Baphomet off of this effect, and it's basically whether you want to fusion lock yourself or not. Baphomet is the better card, because first of all, you can't normal summon it. And second of all, it adds both Gazelle and Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, whereas Gazelle adds only Baphomet or Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, but Baphomet Fusion locks you. And a lot of times you don't want to play only Fusion monsters, so you will summon Gazelle when you can get away with it. And then when you can't get away with it, you will summon Baphomet, and it will be harder. Speaking of Baphomet, Big Wing Baphomet, level 5 Fiend monster. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one level 4 Beast monster and or one Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon from the rest extra deck for the rest of the turn except Fusion monsters. That's really, really strong, and it's funny that it's any Beast monster. The Gazelle is any level 5 Fiend as well, which is kind of interesting, but there are a lot more level 4 Beasts than there are level 5 Fiends. You could search Rescue Rabbit with this, actually, which is really funny. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can target one illusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use each effect once per turn. So, this is interesting. It specifically special summons illusion monsters, even though Gazelle is not an illusion monster. So, a lot of times, what you'll do is you will specifically try to set up either Mirror Sword Knights or Nightmare Apprentice or Cornfield Coatl in your graveyard before you fusion summon, so you have a target for the Big Wing Baphomet effect. Both of this card's effects are really, really strong. We're only playing this card at 2 because it's level 5. But I have seen this drawback one time. If you open exactly Big Wing Baphomet and then you have to special summon another one from your deck with the Mirror Sword Knights, that does result in you not having any more left to try and use as material later. So there was one game where that happened to me, and I really wanted a third Big Wing Baphomet to kind of extend and continue to play the game. I think I still won that game, but still, it was difficult. So I don't think Baphomet is a card you want to play at 3. The deck list is already fairly solid, but this deck is, because it runs so many fusion cards, it is a deck that you potentially get away with running 41 cards in. I did have one game where I opened exactly 2 copies of Chimera Fusion and 2 copies of Polymerization. I just couldn't do anything, and I lost. So when you have to play this many fusion spells, it does mean that you're like more, you are punished less for running more monsters, but the combo is so, the line is so clean that it really feels bad to be inconsistent. So anyway, your mileage may vary. Nightmare Apprentice, this is a fantastic card. Level 6, 2000 attack, 1700 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding a card. This is basically Apprentice, I think it's called Apprentice Illusion Magician. So yeah, it has illusion in the name, and this is just an illusion version of that card. But it does say you can only special summon Nightmare Apprentice once per turn this way. So this card has a hard lock on the number of times you can special summon it, whereas Apprentice Illusion Magician does not. If this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one illusion monster from your deck to your hand except Nightmare Apprentice. You can only use this effect once per turn. That's excellent. So you can get this card, you can search this card off of Gazelle's fusion effect, or you can mill it with your Baphomet, the King of Mythical Claws, or you can just open it, and it's really, really good. You will usually use this to search another copy of Mirror Sword Knight, or if you haven't used Coatl's effect yet, you can search Coatl. Just a great card. You can use it as fusion material for basically anything. You can revive it during your opponent's turn and then trigger the effect again. It's just a crazy extender that you will repeatedly summon multiple times, and it's decent stats. And it's level 6, so you can exceed it with Chimera, Baphomet, or Psyframe Driver to make Lars, which is great. Lastly, in the deck, we have Chimera Fusion. Chimera Fusion, during the main phase, fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, including at least one beast or fiend monster. So you can make any monster in the game that's a fusion monster, but you have to use a beast or fiend as material, and it's a quick play spell, which is nice. But you can only do it during the main phase. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you have Chimera, the flying mythical beast, on your field or in your graveyard, you can activate one of these effects, add this card to your hand, or banish this card, and if you do, special summon both one Gazelle, the king of mythical beasts, and one Baphomet from your deck and or graveyard. You can only use this effect once per turn. Now, it is not Gazelle, the king of mythical claws, and Big Wing Baphomet. It is the original cards, and the original cards are trash, and you can use them to make the original fusion monster, which is also trash. So, don't do that. We're not playing those cards, and I would not recommend that you have this just as like a weird extender to go into like a Link 3 or something. It's clever, it's cute, but don't do it. The ability to basically get Chimera Fusion's ability to fusion summon twice per turn is excellent. It makes up for the fact that we have so many fusion climbing cards in the deck, which is why I've named the deck Excel Fusion. It's just, it's like Excel Synchro. You just fuse and then you fuse with the fuse. So, and this card is great for that. You can also just return it to your hand and set it so that you can make Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn, which is also a good card. All right. That's the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we have... we're playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization as well. Forgot about that for some reason. All right, for the main deck, we are playing Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Wyrm Fusion Monster requires 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. So basically, this is only in the deck so that you can use Super Polymerization on your opponent's cards, which is great. Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. This is also only in the deck so that you can make it with Super Polymerization. 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names. Any battle damage your opponent takes from battles involving this card is doubled. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. So if you attack your opponent directly, it does deal 3,000 damage, which can be pretty funny. But it's mostly there just as a Super Poly target, which is good. Alright, Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. This is the best card. So this requires 1 beast plus 1 fiend. So you make it with exactly Gazelle plus Big Wing Baphomet. This card's name becomes Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, while on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts, once per turn. If this card is fusion summoned, you can activate this effect. Send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard during the end phase of this turn. This is a very powerful effect. Now, obviously hand ripping is important, but the primary benefit of this is that when you fusion summon using both Gazelle and Big Wing Baphomet as material, both of them have an effect that triggers when they are sent to the graveyard as fusion material. So Chimera's effect is there to be the Chain Link 3 to make sure that your opponent can't negate either Baphomet or Gazelle's effect. If they negate Chimera's effect, they've hand ripped themselves anyway. Let's say that they imperm the Chimera to stop it from ripping their hand. Well, they just lost the imperm. So you still have the effect of taking a card out of their hand. What do you care? So, but you make sure that they can't ash you, for example. They can't ash the Gazelle because the Gazelle is not the last link in the chain. This is exceptionally good. And then during your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can banish this card from a graveyard, target 1 beast, fiend, or illusion monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. This is how we play the game. So, we are going to mill our Barrier Statue of the Abyss, and then during our opponent's turn, we're going to banish Chimera from the graveyard to target the Barrier Statue of the Abyss, special summon it to our board. That immediately dark locks our opponent. It's excellent. And we can do that because it's a fiend monster. So yeah, this is a really good card. Next up we have, we're playing this at 2, by the way. Next up we have 2 copies of Baphomet, the Mythical King of Phantom Beasts, which requires 2 monsters with different types, Beast, Fiend, or Illusion. So this is not as restrictive as the other one, and this is the card you will usually make second because the Gazelle searches an illusion monster for you. This card's name becomes Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, while on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Baphomet, the Mythical King of Phantom Beasts, once per turn. If this card is fusion summoned, you can send 1 Beast, Fiend, or Illusion monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is going to be your Barrier Statue of the Abyss. During your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 of your banished Beast, Fiend, or Illusion monsters, except for Baphomet, and special summon it. So the way that you use this card is, once you've banished your Chimera to use its effect, as a Chain Link 2, you will banish Baphomet, and then before you dark lock yourself, you will revive your Chimera, And by reviving your Chimera, you now have Chimera on the board so that you can trigger your grave effects of Cornfield Coatl and Mirror Sword Knight. Excellent. Good card. We run into. Next up, we have Prayer Plant Dragostapelia. Level 8. Dark Fusion Monster. It requires a Fusion Monster plus a Dark Monster. So you can make this with Garura or Chimera or Baphomet, and then usually the Edge Imp Chain that's in your hand, or maybe a Nightmare Apprentice that's on your field. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, place a Predator counter on it. If it's level 2 or higher, it becomes level 1, and then negate the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that have Predator counters. This is just a good card. I was playing this on stream. I used it to basically stop Time Lords from playing the game for 8 turns, and then I won the game. So, yeah, good. Chimera the Illusion Beast. This is the boss monster of the deck. It is only a super rare. It is has 3,100 attack, 2,800 defense. It is level 8. It requires Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast plus 1 or more illusion monsters. So you have to fusion summon this card using either Chimera the King of Phantom Beasts or Baphomet the Mythical King of Phantom Beasts, plus any number of illusion monsters that you have in your hand or on your field. This card's name becomes Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast while it's on the field or in the graveyard. This card can attack monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials used to summon it. If this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you can change that monster's attack to 0, also negate its effects. This is amazing. This is a way to abuse the drawback of illusion monsters. You can't destroy monsters in battle, but what you do, you swing into your opponent's monster, then if it's stronger than your Chimera can't be destroyed either. Then you change its attack points to 0, it's still in attack position, and you crash into it like 3 times, and you win the game that way. So yeah, Chimera the Illusion Beast is amazing. I've won so many games with this card. It's a great finisher card. We only need to play it at 1, because when you only make it when you're going to win the game with it. Magnum the Reliever. This is a level 8 Light Fiend monster. Requires 1 monster special summon from the extra deck plus 1 monster in the hand. Since it requires a monster in the hand, that means that you cannot make it with Super Polymerization, which is frustrating. You can target 1 Polymerization spell or Fusion spell in your graveyard, place that card on the bottom of your deck, then draw 1 card. It's pretty good. You can use it to potentially search your Chimera Fusion off of a Gazelle or a Baphomet if you basically ran through all of them. When another card or effect is activated as a quick effect, you can banish 1 Polymerization spell or 1 Fusion spell from your graveyard, then target 1 card on the field and destroy it. It's pretty good too. So Magnum the Reliever is primarily used to put your Chimera the King of Phantom Beasts in the graveyard if you are fusion locked. You can also make Dragostapelia if you'd prefer to do that. But Dragostapelia requires a dark monster specifically, and we are running a lot of non-dark monsters. So Magnum the Reliever is a good drawback. Fallback card. Basically you just want to put you want Chimera the King of Phantom Beasts in your graveyard so you can use its effect to revive Barrier Statue of the Abyss. If you don't have any other ways of putting it there, Magnum the Reliever. We are playing 2 copies of Guardian Chimera. This card is insane. Requires 3 monsters with different names. Must be fusion summoned using only fusion materials from your hand and your field with at least 1 monster from each. Again, it's not a card that you could super poly. If this card is fusion summoned by a spell card or effect, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards used as material from the hand, and if you do, destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of materials used from the field. This does not target. So let's say that you used 1 monster on the hand and 2 monsters on the field. You draw a card, then you pop 2 cards on the field. It's great. It's fantastic. If you need to draw, you use 2 cards from the hand. If you need to destroy, you use 2 cards from the field. And you can do this on your opponent's turn, and it's just a solid good card. You can only use this effect once per turn. While Polymerization is in your graveyard, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also a good effect, and that is the primary reason we are playing Fight for Patchwork, so we can search Polymerization and play a Gem Chain. Next up, we are playing Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel requires 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner light or dark monsters. For this card, Synchro Summon, you can treat 1 light or dark monster you control as a tuner. If this card is Special Summon, you can target 1 card on the field and banish it. And this card gains these effects based on the original attributes used as material for its Synchro Summon. Light, synchro monsters you control are unaffected by your monster effects activated by your opponent. And dark, all monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. This is great. This is in theme for illusions, making your monsters unable to be destroyed by battle. Primarily, how you will make this is with exactly Nightmare Apprentice and Mirror Sword Knight, Mirror Sword Knight being revived by your Big Wing Baphomet, Nightmare Apprentice being added to your hand by Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. If you are not fusion locked, you can then just make these two. And that will give you an unaffected boss monster with 3,500 attack points that can banish a card on your opponent's side of the field and can't be destroyed by battle. You don't do this on turn 1, but it's a fantastic option on turn 2. And the other thing that's important to note is that this card triggers when it's special summon, not when it's synchro summon. So you can actually use Chimera or Baphomet to revive it during your opponent's turn and then banish again, which is great because it's a fiend monster. So this is just a really good card. Evolzar Lars, level 6 Dragon Xyz monster, requires 2 level 6s. While this card has material, your opponent cannot target it with monster effects. When your opponent activates a card or effect as a quick effect, you can attach 2 materials from this card, or just 1 material if all this card's materials are reptiles or dinosaurs. Then target one face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. So it's an Omni-Negate, which is great. And it also can... This is another way that you can just put the Chimera in your graveyard during your turn. So you basically just Xyz Chimera and Baphomet together, make Lars, then during your opponent's turn you detach both materials, and then you can revive your Barrier Statue of the Abyss. And we'll see that in the replay. Next up, we have Divine Arsenal AA Zeus the Sky Thunder. This is by far the weakest part of the extra deck. I have not summoned this card a single time since I built this deck. In theory, what it is for is it allows you to basically extend with Lars. Once Lars has used its ability, it's kind of a dead card. This would at least allow you to get higher attack points, and then you could potentially suck up some materials with Zeus's missile refueling effect and blow up the board. In practice, however, most of the time after you have used Lars, you will use it as fusion material to make Guardian Chimera. So I can see the appeal. This is definitely like a card that could be used in a very grindy game. But in my experience, a lot of times in grindy games, one player or the other will surrender. So it's not very practical. It's a good option to have, but I don't see it being used, and it is a UR. So I know that a lot of people don't want to craft URs they don't want to necessarily play. I think that a lot of people already have Zeus, but if you don't want to play, if you want to change the extra deck in some way, this is the card to cut. You can put something else in there. And then lastly, we're running SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is there just to make sure that you can link off certain materials. Like, for example, if you have a Chimera and then you have, I don't know, maybe like Coatl on the board, and you need to put Chimera in your graveyard, there you go. If this card is link summoned or fusion summoned using a fusion synchro or Xyz monster as a material, you can target one card on the field or in either graveyard, banish it, also your opponent's monster. Also, your monsters can attack directly this turn, and then when your opponent activates a card effect, you can target 2 face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control, banish both until the end phase. It's a good card. You can potentially like cut the Zeus to make IP Mask Uranus so that you can make Little Knight during your opponent's turn. That would be an option. Alright, that's the deck. Let's take a look at the replay. Alright, so we are going first against Pearly. We're going to start things off by playing Fright for Patchwork, and our opponent is going to Ash it. That's fine. That's our starter. We definitely want to save Coatl. Okay, so now we're going to Coatl. And then we grab Mirror Sword Knight. Alright. So I normal summoned Mirror Sword Knight, and my opponent paused, so I knew that they had either Effect Veiler or Imperm and were reading my card. They saw that they couldn't get any value off of Effect Veiler or Imperm with the Mirror Sword Knight. But that gave me information as well. So when I had the option to use its effect, I summoned Gazelle and not Baphomet to make sure that I could use the Chimera Fusion in my hand to dodge the Imperm. When it does Imperm, we will Chimera Fusion in response. That does mean we don't get to use Baphomet's effect, but it's okay. So we Fusion Summon into Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. And then we'll use Gazelle to draw our other Baphomet. Okay. Now, Baphomet's effect activates as a Chain Link 1, revives the Mirror Sword Knight. Gazelle's effect activates as a Chain Link 2 to search an illusion monster. And Chimera's effect activates as a Chain Link 3 to hand rip. We draw our Nightmare Apprentice, and then we special summon. Now we're going to activate Chimera Fusion, return it to the hand. and then we'll activate Chimera Fusion. We're going to fuse the 2 monsters in our hand, a beast, a fiend, and an illusion monster to make Baphomet, the mythical king of phantom beasts. Baphomet effect, we mill our drawback card. Then we're going to set our super polymerization and exceed into Lars. And then we pass. Alright. Now we hand rip again, and we rip out our opponent's Pearly Happy Memories. During the draw phase, we're going to activate the Mirror Sword Knight effect. The reason why we're going to do this during the draw phase is twofold. First of all, we want to have our monster negate on board as quickly as possible, so we need Mirror Sword Knight in our graveyard. Secondly, we need to put cards in our hands so that we can pay the cost of super polymerization. So we're going to do this in the draw phase. This also makes sure that using this effect does not allow them to play Triple Tactics Talon or Triple Tactics Thrust, because it's not during the main phase. The opponent is going to Called by the Grave to negate our Mirror Sword Knight. That's amazing. They're giving us the option to Lars during the draw phase. So we're going to Lars immediately. Now we have our cards that we want in the graveyard, and we also get our negate. The opponent is going to Max C us. Well, that's unfortunate. Now if we special summon off of the Mirror Sword Knight, we will let our opponent draw a card. And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to run them out of cards. So what we're going to do is we are going to respond to that. Chain Link 3, we're going to banish our Chimera to revive our Barrier Statue. And then Chain Link 4, we're going to banish to special summon our Chimera. This will happen before the end of the chain, before Max C. So we revive both of these monsters. And now, here's the kicker. So first of all, the opponent did not draw anything off of the Max C. We were able to play around our Dark Lock by getting our Chimera out first. But now, here's the crazy part. We Dark Lock ourselves. Barrier Statue is on the board in response to the Mirror Sword Knight effect. So now, Mirror Sword Knight has no targets. The only monsters in my deck that mention Chimera Fusion are Cornfield Coatl, which is Wind, and Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, which is Earth. I only played 2 copies of Baphomet, and I've already used them both. So I failed to find on my Mirror Sword Knight, and my opponent draws 0 cards. Now he activates his field spell, and that's it. He's got nothing. So we play around Ash, Max C, Called by the Grave, and Imperm. Nothing. They didn't have anything that they could do to stop us. They ran out of resources. If they had a Pearly card, they were Dark Locked. If they tried to activate a monster effect, we had Mirror Resonator in the graveyard. If they tried to target one of our cards, we had Coatl in the graveyard. We didn't have any problems playing through any of those cards. And we beat a pretty decent deck without any issues. So that's the deck. My name is Serafian. I was thrilled to have all of you with me.